All right, well, we are going to get started. I'm so excited. Let's see here. Tonight, I wanted to cover something that for me has been coming up quite a bit personally, but also as I'm talking to people and sharing wealth generators and just really working to grow my business, but also just working to help others really understand money, how it works. And one of the biggest things that I've realized that people really just don't get taught on and don't know a lot about is compound interest. And it's really um, the secret sauce behind what we do. It's the magic of wealth building. And so it's important that we understand. Um, well, actually, before I get started, let me tell you a little bit about me in case you haven't seen me up here before. My name is Charnell Sutton, and I'm coming to you live from Raleigh, North Carolina. And it's interesting because 2 years ago, I didn't know anything about building wealth, like nothing. Um, the only thing I knew about money is that there was never enough, right? And there was always more month than money. And the only thing I knew about trading was you know, to find a company that I liked and, I should buy a stock and hold it for 30 years and see what happens. That was my trading experience. And now, just 2 years later, um, it's a complete difference. I actually know how to build and secure wealth. I actually know how money works, right? And now I'm like really empowered to help others do the same thing. And so I'm really excited to be here. So yeah, it'll be almost 2 years for me with Wealth Generators, and I'm really excited. I feel like every day, every week, every month, the company is like innovating and doing something new and reinventing themselves, making themselves better. And for me as a person and as a boss lady, that means a lot because especially as women, I think we really do that well. And I think that that's like how we function, always being innovative or changing our hair or, wearing different makeup or jewelry or clothes, right? We're really good at being innovative and reinventing ourselves. And it's really great to be partnered with a company that can match that, especially when it comes to building wealth. So on this compound interest thing, I have a quote from actually Albert Einstein, and he refers to it as the most powerful force in the universe. Okay. He refers to compound interest as the most powerful force in the universe. He says compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. Right? So we are in a position to really understand how money works, how compound interest can pay us, how we can earn it, versus constantly living a life where we're paying out all these things. On top of debts, the interest that we normally pay actually keeps people in debt. And so it's really important that as we're going out into the field, as we're talking to people, as we're educating our loved ones, that we understand that compound interest can either be for us or against us. It can be positive or negative. It can be our best friend or our worst enemy. And so using the tools that we have with wealth generators, we want to do what we can to make it our very best friend, right? So, what is compound interest or interest, period? Interest is basically just the cost of money, right? So, in excess of a value, specifically money, to be paid when there is a loan. So, whether that you're getting a loan from someone or you're actually, like, for instance, putting your money in the bank and there's a loan there for them to utilize your money. So, they pay you for that, right? And we all know, especially being a part of Wealth Generators, we know that the bank trades our money for us. So, that's why we chose to trade our money for ourselves. There's different types of interest and there's different variables that impact it, and there's different things that go into how it's calculated. So some of the most common forms of interest that most people are familiar with are simple and compound. The biggest difference is simple is more of like a car loan. You know up front what you're paying in the end. You know what your final price is going to be. You can actually do the calculation. Compound is going to be a little bit more complex, and it's usually the route where people wind up paying the most money back, because simple interest, they just use your principal to calculate how much interest you pay. But on compound interest, they actually use the interest that you've accumulated on top of your principal to tell you how much interest you're going to pay. So they really call compound interest interest on interest. Now, in those examples, it doesn't seem too good, right? When you're talking about a mortgage, a student loan, it doesn't seem cool to have interest on interest, and it isn't. But when it's positive, when it's working for us, it's a beautiful thing. So one other thing that I found that people can really relate to is, oftentimes, especially when we tell people, hey, our product, like our accelerator, right, we're averaging 5% a month right now, which is incredible. 5% a month. Don't even talk about our equities, right, which has been averaging like 9% per month over the last 6 months, and higher than that if you look at the last 12 months. But that can blow people away because they're used to getting less than 1% at their bank. They're used to being charged 22.9%, right? But nobody's paying them more than about 1 or 2%, right? Even if they have a traditional investment, we're talking about what we do per month. Theirs is for the whole year. So even if they're getting 9 or 10% for the whole year, it's still not as good as what we're doing, right? So it's really important to understand when people look at it, you can compare it to what they pay on their credit cards or with their car loans, right? For instance, I bank with the credit union, and a car loan right now is 4.75%, but the savings account is 0.75%, right? Big difference. People understand it when you're talking about you getting money from the bank, but now we're telling them, hey, that same rates that the bank has been charging you, we can actually earn that in the market. It makes a big difference. So, let's see. When you talk about the power of how something can compound, and many of us have seen like the penny doubled, would you take the penny doubled for 31 days, or do you want $1 million now? And before wealth generators, most of it would be like, hey, give me the $1 million now, I'll take it. But after wealth generators, we understand the power of letting something sit, right? Giving it time to grow and compound. And at the end of the 31 days in that scenario, you would actually have um, over $10 million instead of just that 1 million that you would have taken if you only had kind of that short-term mindset. So the key with interest and the calculations, I mean, interest isn't, like I said, it's not magic, even though it's magical for us. It's important to remember that it's just based on really on time, how much money you're putting in, what the percent growth it's at, and really time. And that time is not age, right? So when we're sharing this with people, we can let them know that it's not too late. It's never too late, because interest is not about how old you are. Now, granted, if someone started when they're 25 versus 55, they probably have more time to invest. That's the biggest difference. But you're never too old. If you're 45 getting started, you may have to do double what a 25-year-old was investing to get the same results, right? So we can make up for that. But we know that time equals periods of growth. It doesn't mean it has to be years. So the beauty in what we do is we can have that growth in months, not years. So what used to take 30 years, right? Everybody knows about that 30-year plan. You get a stock, or you hold something for 30 years, and at the end of that, when you're ready to retire, your investment will be there for you. Well, we take that and it becomes more like 30 months, right? We really decrease that by the way we trade and take advantage of the markets. So it's really important to understand that, because everyone's already investing. We know that. They're already investing their money, even if it's just sitting in a savings account because the bank is trading it. They're already investing their time. Most people go to work and have no clue what that 40 years, 40 hours a day, and 40% of their money is going to do to them when they get there, right? And then the energy. So energy and time away from family, actually being tired or exhausted or always having something to do, everyone is investing. And so it's really important to know that even that stuff is compounding. So the more, and we do a lot of this with personal development, right? The more the things you think about, that's what happens. That's what comes to fruition. That's what grows. Why? Because that's where you're investing your time. That's what's gaining that compound interest, which is really like that momentum, right? So other ways that I've seen how this really ties into what we do. So of course, compound interest is, the magic behind wealth generators and what we do. But also just even relating to um, our businesses, right? So because everything compounds time, energy, money, and the power really lies within that time. So what things can you spend more time doing so that that can compound? For some people it's talking to more people, it's sending more Facebook messages, it's getting on these boss lady calls, it's having those three-way calls with your upline or someone who can help you talk to people and expose them to wealth generators. um, it really is about slow consistent growth over time. So like when we look at like I mentioned the accelerator and what that's doing, in the beginning, I think a lot of us were kind of spoiled because there were like these trays that had like these massive amount of pips, right? And we just thought that's just how it was and how it should be and how it's always going to be. But that wasn't really sustainable. That wasn't really something that could realistically be promised. It was great while we had it, and it taught me a lot about the markets really quickly. But talking to other traders and getting to experts a little bit more, and even hearing from the founders, it was understood that that wasn't really sustainable. That's not really compounding interest. That's kind of a big burst of a force or something coming out. That's not really momentum, because what momentum does is it's really slow and then it picks up speed as it goes. And that's really the beauty in what we have, but it's also the beauty in what we do. As we're talking to people and prospecting and sharing wealth generators and getting people on our team, it's usually the slow and steady that hang on, that win the race, right? Because over time, that's what adds up. It doesn't mean that it should take you, a whole year to share wealth generators with three people, but it does mean that if you can consistently share with 10 people a month, and you're consistently helping 2 to 3 people per month get started with wealth generators, whether they're just customers, whether they're wanting to grow the business, think about how that grows and how that adds. And then what if they're doing the same? Well, you go from having 2 or 3 new customers or generators to now your team, adding 9 or 12 or 30 new customers and generators every month. That's compound interest. That's how our businesses grow. That's how our money grows. So, but the key in that also is you have to keep adding to it. So, too often, a lot of us get really comfortable that, well, basically, wealth generators has made it really easy for everyone to get started, right? We know that most people don't even have $1,000 in their savings account. And those are the people that we really love helping and that we can help, right? Um, but within that, it doesn't mean that you do your initial, $250 or $500 investment and you just like, kick back and, relax and wait for it to turn into $1 million or $10,000 or whatever. No, this is now your vehicle that you're consistently adding money to, that you are consistently, even if it's like $50 a month, or even if it's $5 a month, compounding does its best when you add to it, right? It's going to take a lot longer for one-time investment of $500 to grow than a one-time investment of $500 and you're adding $50 a month. Big difference. And when you get to the point where things are compounding and doubling and tripling, and you look up one day and it went from 1,000 to 20,000 to a million. Now, of course, that over time, but the whole point of that is it didn't just happen. It's a process, and it goes a lot faster. It works a lot better if you can add to that process. So that momentum then snowballs into a really massive amount. It's the same, it's with our money, and it's the same thing with our teams and with the people that we're pouring into with wealth generators. The things that we can share with people and teach people, and the stories we can share. A lot of it, we have to be patient, because this is a whole new world for people. They don't really, they may have never been taught, even like what I'm talking about today, compound interest. It blew my mind, because even knowing this, there's still a lot that I had been taught, or really hadn't been taught, that I've been working really hard to kind of reprogram, right? I opened up one of my bills the other day. And so even though I know about compound interest and I'm focused on growing it, a lot of times we ignore it in the debts that we have. So, I have this bill um, for a system that I have in my home, a water system. And I've been paying on this bill now for literally, I was gonna say 2 years, but maybe even three. And I realized that it has only dropped from $8,000 to just above $7,000. Why? Because I had been making the minimum payments, and the interest on it was 14%. So what I looked and saw, which I hadn't seen before, was that I was paying over $80 every month in interest. So less than $40 was going to the principal. That's how most people are handling their money. That's how most people view their bills and their debts. And that's where we come in, and we have to share these things with them, because a lot of us just don't know. And even though we've been in this environment now, it's still going to take some time for us to really get it, which is why I'm glad Wealth Generators is dedicated to the education portion of what we do, the money management, the debt elimination, having a savings or an emergency fund, but then putting all that excess money into something that's really working for you. And so when you talk about the power of compound interest, again, it can either be against you or for you. And it's really important that you analyze everything, right? Because as good as Wealth Generators is, we have money growing and building over here. You have to make sure that you don't have any negative debts and bills completely wiping out all the work that you're doing over here. But at the same time, the slow growth is important. And it's easy to miss if you're not sitting there and doing the calculations, right? So if you start an account with $500, right, and we've made $5 for the month, most people would look at that and say, okay, this thing, what is it doing? It's not working, right? But they also don't realize that that is huge, right? Because all of that begins to compound, and the next month you have this, and the next month you have this. I had a business savings account, and speaking of monthly versus yearly, in this account I have it was almost $900, and I didn't realize that my interest rate through the bank was 0.11%, APY, which means annual percentage yield, right? 0.11%. Do you know what that means? It means that it was actually getting divided by 12, and the interest I was given was based off of that, which came out to like 0.008%. Or it is something crazy, because with almost $900 in the account, I got 8 cents. Which means that for the whole year, if I had $1,000 in that account, I may have gotten about $1.20. $1.20. And this is the mindset that most people are used to. This is not what the wealthy are used to, but this is what most of us, Main Street, Wall Street to Main Street, most of us are used to kind of being gypped when it comes to interest. And so we don't really understand it. We don't have a relationship with it. But it's important to understand that every penny counts, literally. And every week of growth, every month of growth, even though not every trade will be a win, if we realize profits and you've gained, 20 or $30 on a $500 account, it's huge, right? I had $1,000 and I would get about 10 cents. I would get, a little bit over $1. I mean, I literally could at the end of the year throw $1.25 in there and have beat my interest for that whole year, right? That's also a key of why you have to keep adding money to your account, right? So your interest can be greater, but why you also need to have the vehicles like we have to invest in so that you're actually getting, the same kind of interest that the banks get. And we actually are very fortunate because we get to take advantage of the tools that the big banks use and the big investors use, even though we may only have $250, so we may only have $500. So I just found that to be powerful, and I found the correlation to really be helpful to me, especially since I've had these eye-opening experiences with my lack of compound interest, and also some of the debts that are like killing me. So I have already set it up in my deductor. We're gonna get all that stuff paid off and out of there. It's become a priority so that as my money continues to grow in the different products that Wealth Generators offers, it will be able to grow unhindered, right? And I won't have to worry about all these other things actually that I'm paying a lot more money out for. And my money can sit there and grow, and I can see the results of that over time. So I hope this has been helpful. Again, compound interest is amazing. It really is magic, even though it's not magic. It's simple math and calculations, but the power in what we have and the power in compound interest and how it just applies to every area of life. Most people think about it for money, but remember, where you spend your time magnifies, where you spend your energy magnifies. The things that you focus on or think about magnifies, which is why we do visualization techniques to see our goals come to fruition, which is why we have vision boards and why we do personal development, because it's important that we're investing in the things that we really want to grow. So that's why it's also important to make sure you have your accelerator set up, your multiplier set up, your simplifier set up, your equities account set up. And if you're not quite there yet, what is it going to take to get there? Because you need that compound interest growing for you today. Awesome, guys. Well, I hope this has been helpful. Let me know if you have any questions. There's tons of things out here on compound interest and learning more about it, but it really is a key tool for you to know about in growing this business and growing your foundation of wealth. All right, guys. Have a good night.